uncontacted tribes. Like, do you know about the gentleman who was the missionary who visited North Sentinel Island and was killed by the natives? North Sentinel Island, which is a really unusual place because
a drone soared over North Sentinel Island and took pictures that scared the whole world. The Sentinelese live on this remote area in the Bay of Bengal. They have not been touched by anyone for tens of thousands of years. But the video didn't only show humans, it showed something more sinister. There have already been 3 warnings, 3 cover-ups, and 1 terrible tragedy on this strange island. What did the camera truly see then? And why do world leaders want to keep it a secret so badly? Let's find out the scary reality about North Sentinel Island, the Forbidden Island. The horrifying video of a drone hovering over North Sentinel Island has scared the whole globe. But the tale behind it is even scarier than the video itself. The Sentinelese, the world's most dangerous uncontacted people, live on North Sentinel Island, a secluded 20-square-mile citadel in the Bay of Bengal. They have lived in utter isolation for more than 50,000 years, turning down every attempt to contact them and brutally guarding their land against all strangers. When an aircraft like a drone passes over North Sentinel Island, the footage it captures scares the whole globe because the Sentinelese don't merely watch strangers from a distance. They aggressively and savagely retaliate. Helicopters and other planes have taken those terrifying pictures of tribesmen standing on beautiful beaches, with their bows pulled and arrows aimed towards the sky, with deadly accuracy. These were never just warning shots. Arrows have physically perforated cameras on helicopters, prompting pilots to turn back out of real concern for their lives. The footage that stuck with me the most was from the terrible 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. While the world grieved the deaths of more than 230,000 people in many countries, a single Sentinelese warrior was caught on film. He stood defiantly on the white sand, bow lifted and arrow drawn, delivering a clear message to the rescue helicopters flying overhead. The Sentinelese live the same way their predecessors did thousands of years ago. They use bows and arrows to hunt and fish, paddle dugout canoes over shallow water, and make basic shelters. They never start their fires by hand. Instead, they are meticulously protected from lightning strikes and have been blazing for centuries. Even though their tools look simple, their society works together really well. Researchers who monitor them from a distance say that their arrows now commonly include metal tips that were found in shipwrecks. This shows that they are adapting in a selective way, without giving in to outside pressure. Not only is the brutality seen from above interesting, but so is the wonder of how people survive. The Sentinelese survived the 2004 tsunami, even though contemporary towns fell apart and technology broke down. They somehow understood nature's warnings without satellites or sensors. They could see how the sea acted, how animals moved, and other small changes that modern science can't see. Their ability to live showed that they had a deep understanding of the environment that the rest of the world had lost. Estimates of the number of persons in each tribe range widely, from 50 to 500. That ambiguity shows how little we really know about the Sentinelese. Are they just a people stuck in the Stone Age? Or is their constant antagonism the result of trauma from encounter with outsiders throughout the years? Every new aerial view of the island shows us something deep, not just because of the arrows and animosity, but also because it makes us face a mystery that science, technology, and modern civilization still can't explain. But the Sentinelese didn't always act this way towards those from outside. The truth underlying this change shows one of the most horrible first contact disasters in history. What could have hurt a whole tribe so badly that they had to fight to stay alive? The colonial horror that made generations of deadly hatred. The Sentinelese are not naturally antagonistic. A disaster that left them scarred for generations made them very resistant to strangers. British naval officer Maurice Vidal Portman led what is now seen as one of the worst first contact expeditions in history in 1880. His invasion of North Sentinel Island caused sickness, death, and shame, turning a tribe that had been living alone into warriors who would do anything to protect their country. Maurice Vidal Portman's trip to North Sentinel Island wasn't just a chance to learn about a culture that lived alone. It was a violent invasion that changed the connection between the Sentinelese and the rest of the world forever. When Portman's troops attacked the island, they took 6 people, an old couple and 4 kids, and forced them to go to Port Blair for what he called scientific study. What came next was terrible. The old people who were held captive perished within days from diseases they couldn't fight off. The kids were weak but still alive when they were finally brought back to North Sentinel Island, but they also brought germs that spread quickly through their society. The outcomes were terrible. Experts think that this virus killed many members of the tribe, taking away decades of knowledge and leaving behind a cultural memory of death that arrived with strangers. This inherited trauma is the important background that is often missing when we see footage that scares the whole world. For example, when a drone flies over North Sentinel Island, what we see isn't just a show of aggression. The raised bows and arrows are not just weapons, they are signs of a deep historical pain. Every act of rebellion brings up memories of 1880, when outsiders brought illness, exploitation, and despair. Portman's actions were more than just biological destruction. Historical records show that he was very interested in the native inhabitants of the Andaman Islands. He made prisoners pose for pictures in humiliating ways, often focusing on their genitals. These acts of dehumanization took away his dignity and made people even more afraid of him. Portman even said later that his mission had failed. His own remarks showed the truth. "We can't say we did anything more than make them more afraid of and hostile to everyone." That statement makes a lot of sense for what we still see now. Efforts to return to the island were quickly turned down because the Sentinelese came up with ways to spot boats coming and disappear before they could be forced to contact them again. Over time, their anger turned into a way to stay alive, and it was passed down from generation to generation. Survival International and other human rights groups say that this occurrence is what made the tribe hostile. They say that the trauma that the Sentinelese experienced during the 1880 expedition may be why they now reject and attack foreigners so strongly. When modern planes record warriors shooting arrows at the sky, they are seeing a reaction that is shaped not only by custom, but also by the memory of calamity. The headline, "Drone Flies Over North Sentinel Island, What Was Captured," terrifies the whole world, is powerful not only because of the tribe's violence, but also because history shows why they can't and won't trust us. But foreigners have tried to break their solitude since the colonial period. Why do the Sentinelese still see every new meeting as a fight for their lives? What terrible lessons have strangers learned by trying to get to their forbidden island? The Missionary's secret 10-year mission ended with arrows. The death of American missionary John Allen Chau in 2018 made North Sentinel Island famous around the world. The world was stunned by his death, but it also showed something much more disturbing than a dangerous trip gone wrong. Chau wasn't simply a lone traveler looking for trouble. He was part of a complex worldwide network that was trying to convert the last uncontacted tribe on Earth to Christianity. Chau's mission wasn't planned. He got ready with almost military precision for over 10 years. Since 2015, he had gone to the Andaman Islands 4 times to gather information, taken advanced language classes in Canada, finished medical school, and gone to a 3-week missionary boot camp in Kansas City. There, he practiced fake encounters with enemy tribes, getting ready for the fight that would kill him. His Instagram account looked like that of an average explorer, with pictures of sunsets, hikes, and messages about wanting to travel. But behind the scenes, This was a cunning disguise aimed to hide his genuine intent from Indian officials who wanted to keep the Sentinelese safe from outside intrusion. Chow had made this mission the center of his existence. He was unmarried and unemployed, so he could be available at any time. Chow saw himself as the next chapter in a long line of martyrs, following in the footsteps of people like Bruce Olson, who visited Venezuela's Motilone tribe, and Jim Elliot, a missionary who was assassinated in Ecuador in 1956. The Joshua Project, a website that shows where unreached peoples live around the world, was the first place he learnt about the Sentinelese. For years, this network stealthily went after tribes that had never been visited before, employing smart planning to get to distant Stone Age civilizations. All Nations, the missionary group that backed Chow, said they had been helping him for almost 10 years, even though they knew he was putting his life on the line. If this event were ever filmed, it would scare the whole globe. His last diary notes tell of the terrifying moments before his death. I yelled, "My name is John, I love you, and Jesus loves you," as arrows whistled past my head. A young Sentinelese boy shot an arrow that hit his waterproof Bible. Soon after, fishermen who had covertly taken him to the island watched in horror as the hostile tribe dragged his body across the sand and buried it in a shallow grave. The Indian government never found his body. His body is still on the beach, where it shouldn't be, a permanent warning carved into the world's most hazardous island. His death caused a lot of arguments for many people. Was he acting out of fearless faith or careless arrogance? But Chow wasn't the only outsider to be slaughtered by the Sentinelese in the last few years. But what happened during that earlier disaster? And how did it change how people throughout the world think about the dangers of going to North Sentinel Island? The double murder of 2006. 6 years before the missionary was slain by arrows, another violent encounter on North Sentinel Island revealed disturbing truths about how this secretive culture treats outsiders. When the story broke, it sent shockwaves around the world, like the kind of fear that would later grip the world when a drone flies over North Sentinel Island, and what it sees terrified everyone. Every new look at this island doesn't just show a culture, it also shows peril. The catastrophe happened when 2 fishermen from Myanmar got too close to North Sentinel's restricted waters, perhaps while they were trying to catch fish. Their little boat drifted ashore, and what happened next was a scary reminder of why this island is still closed off. People on boats nearby watched the tribe come out of the thick jungle with axes and kill both men quickly. Their remains were buried in shallow graves on the shore, and they will never be found. When Indian Coast Guard helicopters tried to get the bodies back, they were met with a stunning amount of opposition. Arrows fell on the plane with deadly accuracy, causing the crews to pull back. These weren't spontaneous acts of violence. They were planned attacks. It was if the Sentinelese understood that people from the outside world were trying to get in. The video from those helicopters, which was taken before drones were invented, shows a resistance so strong that it scares everybody who sees it. This is why any invasion here sends a warning to the whole world. What the investigators saw during these retrieval attempts impacted how people saw the Sentinelese. Their acts demonstrated a meticulous system. They caught intruders, killed them, buried them, and then kept them from being found. This wasn't just random pandemonium. It was organized law enforcement that they made themselves. The thought that a Stone Age civilization could have this level of social order just made the mystery deeper. The experience showed that everything filmed here, whether by helicopter or a sophisticated drone hovering over North Sentinel Island, has a deep and disturbing meaning. The murders in 2006 also brought attention to a bigger issue: illicit fishing near the island. Poaching takes away the same marine resources that the Sentinelese need to live, putting even more stress on a group that is already weak. For them, safeguarding their rivers isn't just a custom. It's a matter of life and death. That's why people from other countries are seen as enemies as soon as they land. The Indian Coast Guard even said they were shocked. Even though there were modern helicopters, a lot of planes were damaged by nothing more than bows and arrows. The accuracy showed that practice, or perhaps systematic instruction, might help people hit aerial targets. For folks who had never used contemporary technology, this expertise was quite amazing. This is what makes the idea of a drone flight so scary. Anything that is captured can really scare the whole world. Every time I meet the Sentinelese, whether it's through missionaries, fishermen, or even a drone, I'm still scared and fascinated. And as history demonstrates, people who try to cross the island's borders don't usually come back. This event showed that the Sentinelese don't like anyone who come into their territory without permission. Yet past attempts to meet them had short periods of calm before falling apart. But what really transpired at those meetings, and why did the last tribe on Earth that had never been in contact with anyone else determine that being alone was the best way to stay alive? The only time there was peaceful contact, and why it didn't work. The Sentinelese were formerly known as the most violent people on Earth, although they once let outsiders see a peaceful side of life. In the early 1990s, something amazing happened that was different from all the other stories of arrows, anger, and rejection. It feels almost as shocking to look back on as the news that a drone flew over North Sentinel Island and scared the whole globe. Researchers didn't catch violence in that instant. They caught something even more unsettling: curiosity. It was like a drone had flown over their island and their culture. What those cameras caught wasn't a threat, but a deep, short moment of connection that scares the whole world because of how fragile it is and what it means about what we've lost. Madhumala Chattopadhyay, a young Indian anthropologist, was the first woman to go on contact missions with the Sentinelese. Before they left, she and her parents had to sign death waivers that said they knew the risks. Everyone understood that going to this prohibited island may bring death. But what occurred next shocked the whole globe. The Sentinelese didn't show their legendary aggression. Instead, they carefully walked up to the shore. They took coconuts that floated from the study ship, which showed that they were interested rather than aggressive. For a short time, this tribe that kills outsiders let researchers into shallow water and talk to them in a calm way, even with women and children. To a lot of people, it seemed like the first clue that years of being alone might finally be coming to an end. This never-before-seen incident opened up amazing prospects for anthropologists. Is it possible that the most isolated tribe on Earth is really letting people in? The Sentinelese were curious about the ship and didn't act hostile like they had in every other encounter. Some others thought this was the beginning of a weak relationship, but the truth would be much worse. Months later, a bigger group commanded by T. When N. Pandit came back, the peace that had been so tenuous was broken. This time, the islanders came out with knives and arrows, making it obvious that the foreigners were not welcome. The change was sudden and scary. All sense of camaraderie was gone. The prior meeting suddenly looked less like being open and more like a plan. Later, Chattopadhyay acknowledged that she knew the terrible truth. The Sentinelese had sent people to gather information on that initial calm visit. They were watching the outsiders, evaluating the risks, and then making a choice. Their final decision was to completely reject it. This one event changed how researchers thought about the tribe. The Sentinelese were not primordial savages. They showed that they could make smart choices and thought ahead. They weighed the risks of getting in touch and chose to stay alive, instead of becoming curious. Chattopadhyay, who was traumatized by what happened, promised never to go back. Later, he said that these tribes don't need outsiders to protect them. What they need is to be left alone. What transpired in those few months showed the world that this so-called Stone Age civilization wasn't dumb at all. It was really smart, well organized, and able to make choices that kept it alive. The Indian government stopped trying to make direct contact with the Sentinelese after even benign attempts failed. However, their new policies made it harder to safeguard both the Sentinelese and the waterways they need to live. The government's failed efforts and the current legal crisis. Indian officials went on a number of risky trips to North Sentinel Island between 1974 and 1996 with the help of anthropologist T.N. Pandit. The goal was simple, but risky: to get in touch with one of the most remote populations on Earth by carefully planned gift-giving expeditions. Researchers would leave coconuts, bananas, and pieces of metal on the beach and then go back to a safe distance to watch. From the start, these operations were dangerous. In 1974, a group from National Geographic went to film the tribe, but they left with a painful reminder of how dangerous it was: an arrow stuck in the thigh of their film director. Even people who only wanted to film had to deal with antagonism. Even though there were these risks, expeditions went on for more than 20 years. Some visits seemed like they would work out, as the Sentinelese were careful about receiving gifts. Others terminated the instant bows were drawn and arrows flew, which made teams have to leave right away. For a short period, it seemed like conversation may be feasible, but the truth was much more convoluted. Indian officials finally came to a gloomy conclusion. Even a contact with good intentions was bad. Every voyage messed off the tribe's natural rhythms, put them at risk of getting diseases they couldn't fight off, and made them dependent on products from outside. Authorities had to back off to keep them safe. The choice became law in 2004. It was made illegal to get within 5 miles of North Sentinel Island, making it one of the most closely guarded exclusion zones in the world. Naval ships now police the waters, but the ocean is so big that it's almost difficult to fully enforce the rules. Authorities have a tough job of balancing things now. It is both morally and legally wrong to protect the last uncontacted tribe on Earth, but keeping an eye on such a remote place takes a lot of resources. At the same time, the economy drives illegal fishing and secret tourism. The challenge is still going on. But Chow's death hasn't stopped the international missionary movement from seeing North Sentinel Island as its ultimate goal. But why are these groups still so willing to risk everything? A growing network of missionaries. The death of the missionary who was shot with arrows did not stop people from being interested in North Sentinel Island. If anything, it started something far worse: a type of martyrdom complex among evangelical groups. These groups see the Sentinelese as more than just a bunch of people living alone. They see them as the final challenge, the last conversion prize, worth risking everything for, no matter how many warnings the island has provided. Mary Ho, who is in charge of the All Nations organization, made that obvious. She said in public after Chow's death that his death simply made them more determined. She said, "Our hope and our prayer is that one day John's dream for the Sentinelese will come true after he dies." This showed that the most dangerous island in the world is still very much on the radar of individuals who are willing to risk their lives for their mission. Chow's friend John Middleton Ramsey has also confirmed what many feared, that others are already getting ready to do what he did. To them, Chow is not a wild adventurer, but a hero whose death showed that their cause is worth fighting for. There are significant groups behind these people, like All Nations in Kansas City, which is supported by rich benefactors like the Green family, who are recognized for giving money to evangelical causes through programs like Covenant Journey. These groups do their jobs quite well. They find unreached peoples all across the world with the help of sites like peoplegroups.org and the Joshua Project. They even map even the most isolated settlements. They don't think Chow is alone. He is in the same league as historical characters like Jim Elliot, the missionary who was martyred in Ecuador in 1956 and became a symbol of sacrifice that inspired generations. Chow's death is not a warning for many evangelicals. It is a call to action. This kind of thinking makes things worse. Every act of violence and every tragic murder on the shoreline of North Sentinel Island doesn't halt the movement, it makes it stronger. People consider martyrdom as confirmation that the mission is important. The Sentinelese have turned down every attempt to make contact and have fought to protect their world with unflinching devotion. They are always in danger from people who won't listen. This persistence, at its foundation, shows a deeper contradiction. Evangelical movements put conversion above everything else, even when it goes against the rights and survival of Native people. People on online forums provide tips, tell anecdotes, and hold Churu up as an example to follow instead of a warning. His death is not the end for them. It is the start of the next chapter. But while missionaries plan future trips, the Sentinelese confront far worse problems that no amount of arrows can stop. This creates a countdown to extinction that could wipe out this ancient civilization before any attempts to make contact succeed. The countdown to extinction that can't be stopped. The recent video that went viral around the world shows a drone flying over North Sentinel Island. It scared everyone because it showed the last uncontacted tribe on Earth and how close they are to extinction. What seems like a distant mystery is really a story about people that is about to be lost forever. The Sentinelese people are even more at risk than animals like the giant panda because there are only 50 to 500 of them. But unlike animals, they don't have any conservation initiatives, protective infrastructure, or a say in global debates. Every outside threat, whether it's a boat, a drone, or a sickness, brings them closer to falling apart. Their survival is on a knife's edge. The whole world was scared by what the drone saw above North Sentinel Island, but the real horror wasn't the hatred of the residents. They were terrified to think about how easily their sacred solitude may be broken. Because they were genetically separate, they were protected from diseases for thousands of years. Now, though, they are quite vulnerable. The ordinary cold, which is not dangerous to us, might kill their whole community in a matter of weeks. Climate change is a hazard to their future, in addition to the risk of being sick. The waters are getting closer to their coasts, and storms that come out of nowhere could destroy the trees and food sources they need to survive. Illegal fishing boats are already taking all the life out of the seas around the island. Every fish that is taken out of those waterways means one less meal for the tribe that has lived there for more than 50,000 years. And then there are the outsiders, the missionaries, the drone pilots, and the thrill seekers, who regard the island as the ultimate place to break the rules. People still talk about how to get around the exclusion zone on internet forums, even though they know it could be dangerous for them and the Sentinelese. Not only are each of these attempts dangerous, but they might also be disastrous, as one negligent contact could lead to the tribe's death. Survival International says that travel, tourism, transportation, and trade need to be kept away from the island. But enforcement is never perfect, and new technologies always discovering new ways to get in. Bows and arrows may have protected the Sentinelese for thousands of years, but they can't stop rising tides, invading germs, or drones flying overhead. So when we see that video and wonder what scared the whole globe, the answer isn't that they're hostile. It's that their tale might finish soon. If nothing changes, the last tribe on Earth that is free and not in touch with the outside world may soon be only a memory. What do you think? Would it be a tragedy of human curiosity, or our inability to preserve the Sentinelese people if they disappeared? Please leave a comment below to let us know what you think. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click on the following video that comes up on your screen. You will like it.